A lot of people didn't want to do business with the Hells Angels. They didn't want to be in an organization where they knew if they stepped out of place, they would be shot in the head.
The Rock Machine was a drug-dealing powerhouse, not willing to bow to the Angels. The gang was comprised of independent drug dealers, club owners, and a few disenfranchised bikers.
The Rock Machine very deliberately stood up to the Hells Angels by recruiting the independent-minded people, the ones who felt squashed, people who felt betrayed or pushed out or just mistreated by the arrogant HA.
Mom Boucher caught word of the revolt and ordered the Rock Machine to disband. But they decided to test his resolve.
Rock Machine says, we're going to keep going, and you can't do a thing about it. Problem was, the Hells could, and they had a lot of killers. And at that time, I'd say in the early 90s, people started to drop.
In just over a year, there were more than 20 murders between the warring gangs.
When the Hells Angels went to war with the Rock Machine, it was almost like free fire. It was a real battleground. It was like being in Colombia or Latin America. They're bombing in people's neighborhoods now. They're bombing in grocery stores. They're like terrorists.
It was the bloodiest biker war ever in North America. By the end of the war, 160 people lay dead. Another 200 were wounded. But one attack changed the game forever.
There was no way you couldn't see the children playing right across the street. And he didn't care. The guy went boom, but he didn't care.
Montreal. This historic city is just 45 miles from the U.S. border. The region is home to over 100 members of the world's most violent outlaw motorcycle gang, the Hells Angels.
The Hells Angels rule supreme. They have a biker monopoly. They will solve their problem the way the Hells Angels like to solve their problem, which is with blood and bullets.
But control of the border drug trade wasn't given to the Hells Angels. They had to take it. In the mid-1970s, the Hells Angels were a well-oiled criminal machine. Their drug franchise netted millions of dollars a year, and they regularly did battle with other motorcycle gangs. But they wanted to expand their empire, and the bikers north of the border seemed like easy marks for these outlaws.
There's a general feeling in Canada that we're about 10 years behind the United States. So they were a bunch of guys that rode Harleys. Their idea of a good time was drinking beer on the weekend, maybe getting into a fight in a bar somewhere.
Recruiting members was no problem for the Angels.
They saw stuff on TV, and they saw Hells Angels in the United States, things like that, and they wanted to look like them. Then we saw it coming slowly but surely, and you saw the long hair coming in, and the muscles, and the leather jackets.
In 1977, the New York chapter of the Hells Angels was the first to look north. They targeted the drug and prostitution rings. So in December, 35 new recruits were asked to join the Hells Angels. They set up in a clubhouse outside of the city near the border. There was only one problem. The Angels weren't the only game in town. The Outlaws motorcycle gang was also seeking to expand their operation. But the Angels wouldn't stand for any competition. They gave their rival a simple ultimatum.
Members of the Outlaws were basically told it's the Hells Angels way. Either you die or you get out of here.
Leading the war against the Outlaws was Yves Trudeau, a.k.a. Apache.
Yves Apache Trudeau really was a king among the killers. He was pretty unassuming, but what he lacked in size, he certainly made up in meanness and in just ruthlessness. He was not somebody you wanted to cross.
Apache was deadly with a gun, but he was also a bomb maker. Before becoming an Angel, he'd had a job at an explosives factory.
It's there that he learned how to make bombs. And it's there that he learned where to get the dynamite and steal it and how to put things together. And he showed it to other members. The lineage goes right back to him for the bombings.
The bombs became a favorite weapon in the battle with the Outlaws.
It became their style. It was a flamboyant style, sent very good messages, scared the hell out of everybody. The Outlaws were overwhelmed almost immediately.
By 1979, the Hells Angels had control across the border. But they didn't stop there. They wanted more, so they initiated a recruiting drive.
They really wanted a lot of newer, younger bikers, but what they did was they recruited a different kind of biker. The new ones wanted to make money. These young guys, they wanted to follow the American model. They wanted to get rich.
Tensions began to grow between the business-minded new recruits and the bar-brawling older members. The new recruits continued operating in the South, and the older members, including Apache, formed a second chapter further north. The internal hostility simmered. The North was messing up business, especially the Angels' efforts to corner the cocaine trade.
The North chapter is renowned for not only being the meanest, but for being the most unreliable. In fact, a lot of the other bikers feel that too much of the cocaine is going up their noses and not into the streets.
In March 1985, things hit a breaking point. Orders were issued from New York. The North chapter was getting sloppy. They needed to be cleaned up. March 24th, 1985. The North chapter attended a party at a newly established clubhouse. 5 Hells Angels rode up, parked their bikes, and walked into the clubhouse. Inside, the South chapter was armed and waiting. When the smoke cleared, the 5 Northern Angels lay dead.
After they put bullets into their bodies, they wrap them up in sleeping bags and weight them down in chains and dump the bodies into the St. Lawrence River.
2 months later,